Perfect. 6:35. Let's start. And I'm very excited that a couple of you joined in today. Maybe some people will join in as well during the time, but we don't want to keep you guys long waiting. I think we have a very exciting session happening today with Evan Pellett. I had the pleasure to meet him now almost 2 months ago in December while I was networking with people. And as you all know, I'm quite ambitious when it comes to finding mentors and talking about career progression and seeing where you can go to in life. And that's why I was able to meet with Evan. And it was very exciting to hear his life story from starting as the top recruiter at Salesforce 20 years ago to working in various other companies to now transitioning into really doing a lot of headhunting and identifying the very perfect candidates for roles at top tier companies, Salesforce, Oracle, you name it. And I'm in the really, really pleasurable position that I'm actually having a weekly mentorship happening now with Evan on a really personal level, and I really appreciate what we're having on, and I'd love to share that knowledge also with you guys, with my beloved club members. And I don't want to keep talking too much. So please, Evan, the floor is yours and amaze us. Looking forward to your talk. Thank you very much.
Alex, thank you so much. And it's so wonderful to be here with everybody and appreciate the opportunity to speak. And if you work as hard as Alex does, then your life's going to be great and things are going to come out amazing. And it's just been such a pleasure and an honor to work closely with him and see his focus and tenacity. And as we all know, effort and commitment and being a good person really often translate to great results and outcomes. So thanks for that, Alex. You're so inspiring, and it's fun for me to teach people a science. There's so much fear around interviewing and how do we do it and how do we define ourselves. And I think so many people too get in an interview. And I've seen it so many times, and when I've interviewed people or when I've heard their experience where they're on defense and they're trying to memorize 1,500 questions and they're kind of sitting there waiting for different things to come at them. So what I did many years ago is I developed a science. It's called Reaprich Science, and I wrote a book called Cracking the Code to a Successful Interview, 15 Secrets from a Top-Level Recruiter. And Alex said that everybody's working on their pitch right now. They want to learn how to pitch and how to impact, whether it's on an elevator or at a function, or if you're in this, stopping into an interview and you're at the top end of it. So I'd like to bring everybody through some really powerful pieces to get us going there. So first and foremost, everybody out there you're going to speak to is going to be defining you. They're really looking at who are you, but they're going to look at your results first and foremost. And when we look at results, we look at what are results. And from an example standpoint, in your results, when you're going to pitch or when you're going to interview, because in the Reaprich science, results are the first part of the interview process. You have to capture people's attention with your results. If they think that you haven't had a successful string of results throughout your life, then they're going to have concerns. So sometimes people will share one or two. And what I teach people is you have to capture the attention and awaken people with your results. So, and I'm sure many of you have been on interviews, and also you may have been on the receiving end of an interview or sit in and witnessed an interview. So when we talk about results, the most important thing is quantifying them, but also a power delivery versus a quiet delivery. And so I'm sure you've all been in meetings too where someone's been called on to speak and they're sitting there and they might be asked a question and they might say, "Oh, yes, how are you? Nice to see you. Okay, yeah, well, I think I can answer this." And, they might fade away. They might get nervous. They might kind of come back from the task at hand to make impact and presence made. So when you're talking about results, having a power delivery really means that number one, you raise the tone of your voice. Number two, you speed up your speech. And really, number three, you accentuate what you're saying. And while you're doing that, your physiology is you want to smile and you want to open your eyes a little bit more and you want to be present. So if you run into someone on an elevator, they happen to be the CEO of a company, and they say, "Oh, Catherine, Bob, nice to meet you. Hey, tell me about yourself." And, that's your moment. And a lot of the best connections for people to get them really to the dream job come at moments when they don't expect them. And so many people are often caught off guard and they aren't prepared to really come out of the gate and deliver who they are. And I've seen it often where people are, "Hey, my God, the CEO of this company is right here. Oh, let me introduce you to them." And people are like, yeah, well, I'm going to HULT and, I'm from this town. And like they don't capture the moment to awaken someone. So what I want to do is I want to show you the difference between a quiet delivery to start and a power delivery as it comes to results, whether it's on the elevator or when you're beginning your interview. So if you begin an interview, someone might say, "Alex, wonderful to have you in today. Seems like you're very interested in our company. Tell us about you." And so when you have that moment, this is your opportunity to capture attention and awaken. You have to come out of the gate strong. A lot of times, though, people tell a long story. They just kind of go in this very long circle about things. They're not exact, and they don't up their energy to command the room. So let's do a quiet delivery first that isn't organized. So I'm going to do kind of a normal delivery, what you get in most cases. So yeah, Alex, I'm excited to be here, and I've done some good things in school and work for some tier one companies. I love recruiting. I've been really good at it. I've broken some records, and I also, rose up to the C level at one point in time, which was really, great to have happen. And, I've worked in a bunch of companies, some unicorns, some tier ones, and I've also written a book. So I feel I have a lot to offer. So that's a normal delivery, or maybe kind of a substandard quiet delivery. Okay, that's how people usually come out of the gate. So I'm meeting you on an elevator, or you've had me in for an interview. Now I want to give you a power delivery. Okay, so Alex, so excited to be here today. Thank you. Yes, I've got my master's and postmaster's in industrial psychology with Psychi honors, and I won the Oracle Best Recruiting Award and 3 Outstanding Achievement Awards. I broke the Oracle all-time hiring record, and I also doubled net revenues in the first year as a COO after 5 years of flat growth. I was ranked #1 recruiter in 6 companies, and I wrote the #1 job book on Amazon. So hopefully in the difference of those two deliveries, people can feel that the second would capture attention and awaken. So the most important thing about pitching yourself is you have to capture people's attention with results that are quantifiable and that are exact, that are very structured in a sentence format. You can't start, "Oh, I got a master's and postmasters in industrial psychology, went to Salem University, really enjoyed it there. A lot of nice people. The teachers were great, and I would get to campus early and I'd stay late." That's all nice and good. That's not what they want to know. You need to really basically plug these into their nervous system really quickly in a way that handles both the conscious question and the unconscious question about, is this person an achiever? Are they going to come here and cause things? And the only way that that can be handled in the unconscious is if they can feel like, my God, everything this person's touched, they've been able to turn to gold. So I'm going to give some more examples, though, now about pulling out results based on different backgrounds and categories. So when we look at what are results from an elevator pitch standpoint, so results in everybody's case are awards, percentages ahead of goal. The percentages, like I finished this project, 20% ahead of time, finishing work projects as well ahead of goals. So a lot of times people will achieve a goal and say, hey, I did 110% of achievement, or I finished 3 projects 20% ahead of schedule this year with everything that I'm doing in my internship. And presidents of clubs is great. A VP of a club, a director, athletic wins, captains of clubs, featured. You're featured in an article, or you're featured somehow as someone who's done well. You've been chosen to speak or do something. Articles, or if you've been published. So these are all distinctions that most people have, some of them. So I want to give another example, okay? This is someone that might be perhaps in college looking for their first job. And we want to be able to sew a string from their early years in high school through college and to now. One of the biggest mistakes a career center will tell you is, if you did great in high school, to not include your wins or your exciting things on your resume. And I want to remind you of something. Career centers want to help you. Many of the people in career centers, um, as much as they care and they're committed to helping you, they have not been a number one performer in the toughest companies in the world, whether on the recruiting side or on the corporate side. They've been a career counselor, and unfortunately, they've probably been trained in most cases in information that's 30 to 50 years old. So that's what you're using to go out and try to get your job. And I've had so many people, had a woman from Harvard that did everything right. She was amazing all throughout high school, did great at Harvard. And she wrote this resume they taught her how to do, and they had taught her how to interview. And her dad was a famous TV and radio personality. He didn't get her into Harvard, she got herself there, but she wasn't getting jobs. And I spent about an hour and a half with her, gave her the copy of my first book, and she went in, applied with the new information she had, the interview science I gave her. She got an interview with McKinsey. They gave her 3 interviews in 1 week, and they offered her the job on the way home before she even arrived back at her place. They called her and gave her a verbal offer. So I came and taught her how to up her energy. She was very kind, very sharp, but she had no ability to engage and express herself. So there was no energy coming into the room when she was there, and she didn't know how to quantify her results and her processes, relationships, and the other pieces. So let's get back to results. So an example of someone that could be in college sewing a string through the results, saying with energy, could sound pretty much something like this. Well, Alex, I was captain of the #1 state soccer team 5 years in a row in high school. During my PwC internship, I finished 3 projects 20% ahead of schedule. I was responsible for leading the internship team on 2 national projects, and I was selected to present with PwC full-time employees in a top customer meeting. I also achieved a 3.9 and a 4.0 in my 2 master's degrees, and I won the most improved student award in early college. So that one started in high school. It stated an athletic player mentality, an Olympic player mentality, getting 5 state championships. And it showed the person interviewing you that you were busy before you ever even got to college. Now, some people might say, I also got a 4.0 in high school, or I took this many AP courses, or I was president of these 3 clubs. It really doesn't matter, as long as whatever your results are, you include them. So the way to do this most quickly is on a simple piece of paper or in a note, write down your top 10 results, and then you can quantify them. In your interview, you'll notice I did that in probably about 40 seconds, maybe 45. I gave those out. In many cases, if you go over 45 seconds, you might lose the interviewer's attention. That's the other reason, too. In Reaprich, the first letter is R for results, the second letter is E for energy. So you're going to be combining your results with energy, and you're going to come out of the gate strong. Let's look a little more at results. Sewing a story or a string through your achievements. Now, I want to remind everybody too, Once I've presented, I'm going to come back around and leave a bunch of time open for questions. And because I'm presenting and I have my presentation up, I can't see any notes or questions. Otherwise, I'd stop. But I don't want to lose things where they are. But I will say, if anybody feels I'm going too fast, please speak up and ask me to go slower, because I like to deliver this with passion, because this is how your interview needs to happen and be delivered. So results over time, they create credibility about you, and they answer the first unconscious conscious question, which I mentioned before. The first unconscious question of every hiring manager is, if I hire them, will they achieve, or are they going to cause me regret and pain? And the unfortunate part is that many of these hiring managers will interview based on fear. So if you don't entirely convince them that you're a winner, and even if you had 10 responsibilities at a job and you did 2 of them better than anybody else, and you were always called on to do these things, then that's your results for that particular role. I was the chosen person. I was the best at these 2 things. And we'll quantify that a little bit more in a minute. But eliminating that question through result statements and in your resume is how you close them. So in sales, we give enough value so that people will buy the product. They're closed. They're saying yes. They're like, I want this, sell it to me now. In delivering yourself in a power statement and energetic way, you're basically having them feel a guarantee that if I see it, hello?
Evan, how many does it want to take?
Oh, I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Maybe she mistakenly on mute.
Oh, she was on mute. Okay, sound good. Sounds good. So one of the things Alex has done amazing with, and we've been working on, is he has these incredible results. President of the club that you're all a part of. He has incredible grade point averages, and he's done a lot of things both technically and in business. So he's got a lot to share. So coming out of the gate with those, with his great personality, as you all know, being able to really talk about those and stand on top of his results is a really powerful thing to hear him do. And he put a lot of practice in it. So now when Alex gives his results statement, it's quantified, it's exact, and he's starting to really get the attention of some very top people. I believe he got 2 recommendations from McKinsey people, which to get their recommendations as partners is not an easy thing to do. So this works in action, and I've had it work so many times for people. I've had so many people that weren't getting the internship, weren't getting the first job, weren't getting the mid-career or the executive job. They put Reaprich science into practice, and they had a job that week. And so, and I want to say that out of everybody that's contacted me, and I say this humbly, I have never had a person who hasn't got a job by using the science. So, and if they have, they haven't told me about it. So eliminating the question of, are they going to cause me regret and pain, through your results statements and in your resume, and having energy to close them, get them excited, is going to change the game. If they are excited about your results, they're going to want to get on to the next thing. And results is the most important thing. That's why it comes first. So I'm going to do another results example. So, Ashley, so excited to be here today. Yes, well, I won Employee of the Month at Dairy Queen in high school, and I was in the top 5% scholastically junior and senior year of high school. I achieved the most amount of mentorship hours of my peers for the Autistic Focus Project, and I got a 3.9 GPA and became vice president for 2 clubs by sophomore year of college. I also received an A-level performance review in my first 2 internships, and there were 5 selected out of 100 for each year's team in those internships. So I made the top cut. So that's something that shows results from high school up till now. And there's nothing wrong with saying you got Employee of the Month once, even if it's at a simple service job, because they want to know no matter what you were doing that you somehow distinguished yourself, whether it was athletics. They love to see that people work, that they're humble enough to go into a service job and work hard. So people often leave those out of the equation, and they're not giving everything they've got to move forward. So let's go into practicing. So once you've made your 10 results, or you might come to 5 or 7 great results, right? You have to practice it and make it real. And I believe most of you are, at the tail end of a bachelor's or master's degree, and have made some investment in your education. And the one thing that really kind of blows me away is people will spend anywhere between $80,000 to $250,000, sometimes $400,000 on an education, between their housing, their books, and everything that they do, all the costs that they have. And they haven't spent 3 or 4 hours really learning how to power interview. Or they'll read the book and say, I love all this. It makes sense. It's incredible, but they won't practice. So we can all want to be athletes and go to the gym. We can see the best athletes that are in the best shape. But if we don't work out and practice, then it's just a thought. It's not something that's been made into action. So practicing makes people uncomfortable. Alex has a lot of guts and courage. When we started practicing his results, because he had wonderful results, he really jumped outside his comfort zone and took risks. And I always love seeing that, right? Because all the great things in life, in most cases, are outside the comfort zone. They're outside the box that we usually live in. So starting by stating your results in the mirror, raising your volume, and even yelling it out twice. When we yell something out that's a statement, and let's say we're shy, right? And we're talking our results and we're practicing. When we yell them out, it makes us uncomfortable. We might even shake, our eyes might water, our mouth might shake. We might get nervous in front of ourselves in the mirror. And we have to remember that that's how we break out of our comfort zone. Very similar to public speaking. You have to stand in the fear when you start. Eventually, it goes away and you get comfortable. Many people dread that fear for most of your life. If you want to really be authentic and awakened in the interview and capture people's attention, you have to practice. So as you're in the mirror, you want to smile, open your eyes wider, get outside your comfort zone. And so if you get nervous or you feel like, oh, I failed, or my eyes started blinking, my eyebrows started shaking when I was speaking loud and smiling and getting way out of my comfort zone, well, wonderful, because it's just you in the mirror. So nobody's going to count you out based on that. And if you think the best actors and actresses in the world that give the best performances don't spend a lot of time doing this and risking and getting outside their normal personality, then you'd be very sadly mistaken. So we're really doing some time-tested practices, but we're doing them in a very powerful way. So the other thing is physiology is important. Sometimes we get in our comfort zone sitting and we're risking. Sometimes after we've spoke for a while, someone will walk in the room and it makes us uncomfortable. When we're practicing saying our results and making it real, it's important to say I'm standing, say I'm sitting, even stand on one leg. And while we're doing it, when it starts to go smoothly on time 4 or 5, and keep in mind, you can practice 6, 7, 8, 10 times in 5 minutes. 5 minutes, not a long investment to become a masterful person in delivering your results in an interview. When they start flowing and they're just coming out of you in the way I said them earlier, you want to touch your thumb and forefinger together, because this is called anchoring. And what it does is, if you do this enough when you're really flowing and jamming with your results, what will happen is when you go to do it next time and you want to bring your results, you run into someone on an elevator and you're about to say them, even if your hand is down by your side, if you touch your thumb and forefinger together, your body will remember that. It's an anchor and a cue, and it will help you get into that excited state as you deliver your results and bring things forward. So practicing in the mirror is so key, because I used to, I was going to be a corporate psychologist. All the jobs dried up. I had to reinvent myself after I had gone and gotten all these degrees. And that was a dream of mine, right? But when I was going to be a corporate psychologist, your experience of me would have been like, oh, hi, Alex. How are you? How's everything going for you today? It's really nice to be here with this group. And how are you feeling? What's going on with you? I was a pretty mellow, empathetic, caring guy, and I still am. But when I got into Oracle, the number one database company in the world, I had to get awakened very quickly. And I had to learn how to speak and get command and get people's attention. So, the reason I say this is it was very uncomfortable for me to practice my results and my statements. I shook a little bit at first, or a lot in a few cases. And then, I started doing it more, and I had to figure this out myself because I noticed I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to try to practice this because I would get in some situations and just be I was a very kind of quiet, shy guy, and I wasn't excited about that. So now you start by doing it for 5 minutes in the mirror, perhaps in the morning for 3 to 5 days. Great to do it when you're fresh and you got the energy to go outside your comfort zone. And eventually we'll go into all of Reaprich about your pitching. But if you practice every part of your delivery this way, then as you're in the interview, nothing is going to stump you. And no matter what they ask you, in 98% of the cases, if you can go on the proactive and state all the parts of Reaprich and deliver them effectively, no matter what they ask you, they're going to move you forward. I've had hiring managers say, well, I had a bunch of other questions, but I feel so good about what you've shared that I'm going to move you forward right now. And so the reason for that is, remember earlier I talked about the conscious and the unconscious. Reaprich is tied exactly into what is in the unconscious mind of the hiring manager. Some of it may be conscious. They know they need someone with results and achievements, but there is an unconscious set of questions that need to be answered by every hiring manager in order to say yes. If you answer them through proactive statements, you have a very strong chance of getting the job. And I've had people do this that have actually missed some of the questions that were asked too, where they said, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. And they've still gotten the job. So we'll get a little bit more into that and why that happens later as we get into the full Reaprich science. So as you're practicing and making it real, after the Mira, it's really good to do it in front of a friend or group, okay? Be uncomfortable, risk, move them. Now, you don't want the friend that's going to tear you apart after you've risked and after you've gotten nervous. You don't want the critical person. It doesn't mean you don't want feedback, but you don't want people that are what we call negatosos, right? And they're not there for your growth and for you becoming your best. It's your job to figure out a safe audience to practice taking your risks, okay? And so this could be family, it could be friends. Sometimes family is very comfortable, but perhaps your partners in this mentorship club could be great people. You can call them up, get on a Zoom for 5 minutes with them, or you can get a group 25 minutes and everybody takes their turn. Doing it in front of the group is great because it makes you uncomfortable and everybody can risk. And some of the top people I've coached coming out of college, I had a group last year. One of the groups was all women. They were amazing. They all got wonderful jobs, but they were all nervous and terrified about getting a great job. And we would practice. We had part of the coaching that I do through my company, How Leader, is I do group coaching and one-on-one, where we teach people how to risk. Because for some people, they read the book, but they don't know how to risk. But doing it in front of a friend or group, being uncomfortable, you want to risk, but you want to move them, okay? You want them to feel your energy, to know that you're there and that you came into the room. So this is where, if we're shy like I was, we step out of the kind of wallflower mindset. We give up being a wallflower, right? And we deliver with command and we say that I'm here. So Now, as you're doing this and after you've been practicing, one of the most important things with this in combination is visualizing you saying your pitch and visualizing seeing it go great while you're delivering it. First, it's seeing it happen in the mirror. Second, it's seeing it happen with your friends or who you decide to practice with, right? You want to visualize your outcome. And I want to really make emphasis on this. This is a very key point. Many of you are very smart and have done wonderful things, and you're going to do great things in the world. And I'm in huge admiration of the success of the folks in this club. What I want to say, though, is many people don't know the greatest miracle that there is, which is when we think about something enough and we think about it clearly and we visualize it and hear it and feel it, often it goes from within us out into the physical world. And here's where I want to talk about this. Many of you, have you ever been thinking of someone and you miss them or you haven't seen them and you're thinking about them, and all of a sudden they come walking around a corner and they're standing there face to face, or they call or they text? People think that this is an accident. And the best books out there, Real Magic by Wayne Dyer, about really about miracle making in your life, talks about we become what we think about all day long. The people in the book Think and Grow Rich that was written, they all practice visualization and feeling and seeing their results. So if you see yourself in an interview or in a pitch, in an elevator or a cocktail party or a school function, and you've practiced, you've felt the butterflies, you've risked and gotten into your comfort zone, and you visualized it happening, there's a very good chance that when you put your thumb and forefinger together in that next situation, you're going to come out of the gate with passion, with energy, and people are going to look, and the person talking to you is going to look and say, wow, this person is here with me in this moment. So visualize your pitch, see it going great, and see yourself smiling in it. When you're doing, you want to smile. Smiling, it makes us feel good. It makes us less uncomfortable. At first, we're nervous. Your mouth might shake when you're smiling and you're getting intense. Speak through it. Keep going. Now, when you give a pitch, it's a moment. Life happens in moments, and the wins are outside your comfort zone. So you impact people in moments, whether it's the first part of your interview and you awaken them, or in a cocktail party. And we've all been in a conversation, unfortunately, and I try to really stay in a non-judgmental space, but where someone's going on, and you might be thinking about, I got to do my laundry later. Where am I going to dinner with my honey? What am I doing this weekend? I'm going skiing. I have to write this paper. We've all had times, unfortunately, where we've been anywhere except in that conversation. And in your results pitch in the beginning of an interview, if you don't get that hiring manager's attention immediately and awaken them, and they've done 5 interviews or 12 interviews that day, or they've had a busy day, they're going to be everywhere except in that meeting with you. They're going to kind of come in and out of consciousness. So one of my best mentors at Oracle, he ran the top 400 golden accounts. His name was Ralph Safarian. He became such a teacher for me when I was at Oracle, and I knew nothing when I started there. And he said to me, listen, every time you go in with a C-level executive, you have to light up the room. And anytime you go into a meeting, you need to awaken the room, whether that's an interview or when you go to New York to speak with an SVP. So you need to practice bringing your energy. You cannot just sit there and smile and listen. And he would tell me, you don't let down your guard. You come there with energy, with professionalism the first 6 times you meet with a client that's at a senior level. So as we look at the concise pitch and results, I think we've all been in a situation where we've asked a question and someone has told us a long story and they've gone on and on. And, in my role, I've done thousands of interviews, and sometimes I get the most intelligent people, or so I think, and they've got a good start in their background, or they may have been working somewhere for a while. And I ask them a question and they go on for 15 minutes or 30 minutes. And, when you tell a story, there's times to tell a story. And that's when, in your statements about results or the other areas we're going to cover, if someone says, "Oh, yes, Alex, that is amazing. Hey, drill down on that. Tell me more about that project in your team." That's when you tell the story. So you want to have stories behind things so you can drill down and explain your results. But you want to make sure that when you're in your results, as it says in our first bullet here, that they're concise, crisp, direct, impactful. No run-on stories. Get to the point. Okay. And sometimes as you get out into business, you're going to be speaking with people that are responsible for a 10 million, sometimes a $300 million number. Some of them are going to have $1 billion if they're their last person on your interview time. You want to be present. You want to get to the point. You want to bring energy, and you want to say them to say, "My God, that person brought me energy. I feel excited. I feel awakened after meeting with them. And I understood them. They rung the bell everywhere they were. They made an impact." So once again, 40 seconds or less in that delivery, energy and volume must be used to capture your listener's attention. Remember, emotion captures attention. Light up the room. If they ask you to expound on something, explain it in 3 or 4 sentences unless it's a complex project. So this is where people sometimes step off the cliff. They'll do well, they're concise. They get asked to expand. What do? They go into a 5 or 10-minute story. And that's not what's needed in this moment. Normally about 10 to 20% of when you're asked to expound on something, you'll need to go beyond 3 or 4 sentences. So have those planned as well. But remember, manage yourself, manage your time. If they're looking at you for a top consulting company or a great technology company, if you go off on some tangent, you're down a path, in their mind, they're probably going to shut down that interview and your possibility in it right there. These companies are very strict. They expect you to be awake. So don't lose their attention, awaken them. And you capture their attention in the first 5 minutes. Otherwise, their mind will be elsewhere. So Reaprich, what is it? And I want to kind of go deep on what the science is, because this science wasn't just me getting a master's degree and high honors and, all the things I achieved with the Psych High Honor Society and the research I did. These results, energy, all the things you see here, Reaprich was made up when I went to Oracle and the companies beyond that. And so when I went to Oracle, no one was making hires. The group I got hired with, most of them, if not all of them, 90% of them got fired in the first 3 to 6 months, the new set of recruiters I started with. And the ones that didn't were given a favor and moved into some other group because they knew someone. And so the reason I say this is you really have to be focused when you're delivering about your results, but you also have to be someone that when you get somewhere, you're impactful. And the same thing happened when I was hiring for Oracle, and I broke the all-time hiring record and had 3 outstanding achievement awards. But guess what? There were people I was interviewing for Oracle that were wonderful people. They had great backgrounds, and guess what? They were failing all the time. I saw them getting sent home. They didn't get the job. They couldn't believe it. And in these other tough companies, I saw the same thing happen. But because I was the #1 recruiter in the world and in the history of Oracle, some privileges came with that. And I worked my heart and soul out to get that. I was the first one in and the last one to go. They used to say, "I always see your coat hanging here when I arrive and when I leave." The VP of HR would state that. Now, the reason I say this, most importantly, is that these people had what it took to do the job, but they were not convincing the hiring managers. So these managers began to bring me behind the scenes. I kind of became like, when I first got there, my boss said, get in and get out. State what you're there for with these leaders, see what they need, then get out. Don't waste their time, because I was so happy I was getting along with them. I was spending too much time sitting in their offices. He was like, they love you, Evan, but they got things to do. Get in, get out. So I started to do that. But when I started delivering and figured out the science of getting great people to Oracle, what happened was the SVP and the VP and all these wonderful people, even the EVP, would pull me in and say, listen, appreciate you bringing them. I really liked them, but I got to tell you, here's why they failed. And they trusted me. So they would tell me things. So what ended up happening is I started hearing the truth all the time about why people were failing. So let me bring you through that list and let me show you how it relates to Reaprich. So people would come in, do a lot of things right. They might say, well, I did really good here and I did good there. And, I performed well in school and I was an athlete. Oh, great. That sounds pretty good. But there's no distinction that owns you and grabs you when we talk about those results, right? There's no percentages, no specifics. Some people, anybody can state that. It's like when someone writes a resume, if your results aren't in there in your first bullet and they're not bolded, then people are either going to think that you don't have results, or if you start talking about them, or just about what in the way I just said that there, they might say, they're kind of BSing me. They're not telling me the truth. So it's your job to put your results in the forefront. It's not arrogant. It's not bragging. It's stating the truth. Just make sure, though, that they're accurate, because whether people do their research and they can find out if someone's not telling the truth. So also, too, if you're being dishonest in an interview, a top level interview they're going to pick up on it if they're an intuitive person, if they're developed, if they meditate, such as myself. I've had people come in and try to sell me A to Z on things, and I just know now. I have some questions too to flesh out truth. We'll get to that later, but they would also say to me, Evan, they came in, they did well, but my God, they put me to sleep in the interview process. I couldn't wait to get out of there. Oh, they had no energy. They were so smart and analytical, but I just couldn't wait for them to go home. Now, that's sad, but it's true. Many people were scared, were shy. We don't know how to get awakened and capture the room. But if they're going to put you in front of a client or a customer, or internally, if there's things you're going to have to accomplish, they're going to want to know that you have energy and command to ask for the things that you need. So once again, unless you're in a highly technical, analytical role, being super shy probably isn't going to work. So don't put them to sleep. And the worst feedback I get in the energy area there is one of the common things that people would say in a slang fashion. They would say, Evan, thanks for bringing them in, but they already died and nobody told them. Send them home, please. That's how direct it gets in some of these places, okay? They're playing to win. They have huge goals. So also, attitude. Don't talk negatively about anybody or anything in the interview. Have emotional intelligence, EQ, okay? Be tactful. Sometimes you get people excited, and if you've done the first two steps right, they might really start to like you and start to open you up. They may even been trying to open you up and say, hey, I know 2 companies ago you were with this company and heard some stuff's really happened over there. And did 3 people get fired for this? And this happened to the CEO. And you could say, yeah, a lot happened, but I really enjoyed my time there. It was a great experience. You want to keep it as simple as that. People sometimes will say, yeah, my God, I got to tell you, this one guy was terrible. The CEO didn't know what he was doing. A lot of times people get drawn in, they get baited. You need to have a positive attitude. A manager who hasn't been trained well is going to interview based on fear. And if they see you make a mistake and bring negativity, they're going to attach to that, and they're probably not going to move you forward. And why? Because people like to feel safe, and finding things wrong with people is the easiest way to count someone out. So don't give that to them. Don't hand the keys over to them. Make sure you keep a great attitude. And I've seen it all. I've had some people suddenly, if they're doing well and they open up, oh, my girlfriend used to work here. My boyfriend worked over at that company. We weren't getting along, so I had to go. It's like, this is an interview. And if you get to know people in a great company, they're going to care about you. You're going to have another family and you'll be able to talk some things. I even tell people, though, keep most of the stuff to yourself. It's nobody's business. People love to talk. So contain and process what you have. The next piece, the most important part with energy and a great attitude, okay, after your results is processes. And I had this happen at Oracle with Bill Bench, a fast riser, one of the most famous guys there. He said to me, Evan, this guy's got great results, but I have no idea how he got to them. I don't know if he begged, cheated, borrowed, and steal to get to them, but it almost sounds too good. I like the guy, but I can't move forward. He couldn't tell me anything about how he got to these results. So there's a thing called sensory acuity. And when we get a sense that someone's achieved and you've hit it in their nervous system, being able to share the processes on how you achieved is absolutely key. And so processes can be things like work ethic and practices. So I'm going to use my examples and some of Alex's to give you that insight, as well as a woman that I coached who was amazing. She's a top leader. So in processes, I would simply say, I'm going to kind of wheel this together. We'll pretend it's all mine, okay? But and if you can get your results and processes out in the interview, you're 60% there. So processes, when we look at that, we basically I would say, yes, and Alex, the way I got to those results in recruiting is I outworked all my peers. I made more phone calls than anybody. I figured out a way to sell every company I'm with and focus on security, opportunity, and possibility and get into people's nervous system to get them excited. I also developed employee referral programs that were highly visual and upped the numbers by over 500 to 1,000% in every company I've been with. So I got so many more resumes and so many more qualified people. Thus, I was able to screen them and bring you a better quality as we moved forward. So that was a little long. Sometimes my results are much quicker than that. But in Alex's case, part of what he would say is, I outwork everybody. I'm very organized with my time. I have to be as president of the HULT Mentorship Club. I also got a 3.9 and a 4.0 in my dual master's programs. And what I've realized is I have to plan and finish things ahead of time. So I leave myself room in case anything doesn't go well. So I finish my projects ahead of time. I outwork everybody else. And also, too, I have touch points on reaching out to people, making connections so I can build these groups that I lead and I'm a part of. So getting specific, how did you get to these phenomenal results? Bring them close, give them familiarity. Do not tell a long story if they ask you a question, because you've still got a lot to get to, okay? In an interview, I've gotten to the point in most of the people I've coached, and some of it's been some real one-on-one coaching intensity, they can get their results and processes out in their opening statement with energy and a great attitude. And then they stop. They wait to see if the hiring manager asks a question. Often they will. You answer that question, you get to the point. Sometimes they won't. But even if they do, no matter where you are in the interview, you get to say, where am I in the Reaprich process? You answer the questions effectively. Then you've got to impact relationships, because one of the other fears, and the biggest one outside of results, is the hiring manager says, and I'm going to say this to you in a funny way, they're going to say, I really like them. They've achieved, but can they play nicely with the other kids? And the reason is you can have results and be someone that pushes and forces and gets results. But if you're someone that burns relationships or you upset people, you're not going to last long. And they don't want that in their teams. equilibrium and culture is so important today, as well as people's values and how they're treated. In the same way we go after diversity and we make sure everybody gets a chance as much as we can to interview, and we make sure that, we're treating everybody with incredibly similar interview processes, we really also have to make sure that as we're going forward, that we're asking questions, that everybody's had a fair chance. They've had really the same opportunity. So relationships, they're going to want to know, though, how do you build them? How do you keep them? And how do you build new ones? And so even a shy person might have 2 or 3 or 5 long-term relationships, but you want to hit these quickly too and say, Alex, by the way, I also build incredible relationships. I've got 2, one from high school that was a teacher and coach, and also one from college that would write references for me. And I became the best performing students in their classes. And they also let me do directed studies. And I could actually bring them to the school here to contribute on business ethics and biology. They both used to work for top tier 1 companies. I also build short-term relationships by really stopping to listen to people. Everybody I speak to has something to say, and I repeat it back to them, and I figure out what really matters and what they're saying to me, and I look behind what they're saying to see what causes really matter to them. And in doing that, I build trust, and I build it quickly, and often I mentor and I help people out. And when I do that, I become a very appreciated person. I know I could apply these strategies to the customer base and also into the internal customers that work here, which are the ones that I need to deal with every day, my fellow employees, to get things done. That's a little bit longer version, but I'm telling you a little bit more so you understand. They have to understand that you can keep long-term relationships and that you've built them, and that you can build short-term ones. Oracle had a really senior guy try to get a different job in the company. One of the senior people pulled me aside and said, "Hey, the guy's done great. Can't hire him. He burns relationships. He runs people over everywhere he goes. I can't have him on the team. He may get the result done, but he pisses everybody off in the process." So relationships are key. And the other important part of relationships is, when I was at Bose, it was a very respectable company, great company. They had a no asshole rule. And they didn't care how smart you were, if you were the most genius person that ever came to Bose, that if you didn't treat people with respect and kindness, you would get fired and be out the door. And those values about how they treat people were carved into the wall. And I had a private meeting with their CEO and the 11 top executives. They would test every product in every amazing way. 11 out of the 12 told me about the culture when I got to interview and have a private audience with a few key people. A group of us got to ask them questions. So culture is key. And if you don't like people, you're not good at getting along with people, then either get the help you need so that you can, and work on your inner emotional self, or find ways to be positive enough that you're not upsetting people, because once again, that is fading quickly. Toxicity, it's out the door. And I've seen some of the best get fired without notice because they didn't treat people appropriately, they didn't know how to manage themselves, or they had arrogance. So when we talk arrogance, and we're going to talk about interviewing them, this is the place in the interview where you turn the interview around on the interviewer, and you ask them intelligent questions that elicit positive nervous system responses. And you show them that you have the courage to ask questions. You don't ask arrogant questions like, "Hey, I've got 3 offers. This seems pretty good, but why should I come here?" You do that, it's probably not going to work out. If you ask a question, a great one to ask is, "I've seen some great information on the website, Ashley. You've been here for 5 years. What do you love about the company that I wouldn't be able to find in my research? What's most important to you here?" People love to be asked about themselves. And if you ask them about what they love and what's positive, it's going to elicit a positive response in their nervous system. Okay. I have a bunch of other ones in my book, but it's important. You've had positivity throughout your interview process. You want to keep it here as you ask them. Now, as you're interviewing them, you'll see that close them is next. You want to begin to pre-close them. You want to know what they think of you. So a pre-closing question is, Alex, I've really enjoyed my time here with you today. I feel like we've really hit on some strong opportunities where I can make an impact. If I started here next week or in a couple months, where would you first have me working? What tasks would? So that's one question. You want to know if they are seeing you already as someone that's going to be in their company. Second, you can ask them as a pre-close, say very clearly, uh, you know, Alex, do you feel strong about moving me forward in the interview process? And he might say, well, Evan, we're talking to 10 other people. We like them, we'll get back to you. People cannot tell you what they don't like about you legally in an interview process. They maybe can, but if it's found out, they can often get sued depending on the state and the situation. You need to give them permission to ask you that question or to give their feedback. So saying to someone, well, Alex, I understand you're speaking to other people. Do you have any concerns or fears about my background? Is there anything that you want to address with me that is keeping you from moving forward? When you give them permission to address that, they're going to love that you have the courage to ask the question. They're also going to love that you have the openness to give them the floor to speak to something. Now, 75% of the time, the thing that they have a concern about is something you can handle immediately on the spot. Well, Kathy, I noticed you use these two technologies, but we use this and this over here. And I just feel like it would be a long learning curve for you. And we really want someone to come in the door and come out of the gate. Oh my God, really, Michael? Well, actually, in my prior 3 companies ago, I used those 2 technologies for over 2 years, but I thought they were basically outdated. So I was aligning with the more current stuff. But no, I have that. Oh, great. Okay. So then you ask the question, Michael, based on what I just shared with you, do you now feel excited and comfortable about bringing me forward? And if they aren't, you say, are there other concerns? You want to get it out of them before you walk out of that door. You want to know if they're saying yes. You don't want to leave concerns on the table. And so asking those questions are key. If they're excited about you and they say, oh yeah, I love my time, Alex. It was great. So nice to meet you. You want to close them. And what closing is in a light way, it's asking what the next steps are or asking about concerns like I shared before. But a real close is asking for the job. That's great, Alex. Do you see yourself extending me an offer in the next couple days? Can I expect the phone call or that in the mail? That's great, Alex. Do you see yourself extending an offer for me to be on your team? I'd really love to join. After you ask the question where you're asking for the sale of you, you go completely quiet. You don't keep talking. In sales, whoever asks the question, when you ask for the sale, whoever talks first loses. And it's not always a loss, right? They might be like, yep, I'm getting an offer together for you. It's contingent on a background check, but I'll be calling you tomorrow, or Susan will, to give you that verbal offer. So when you close them, a lot of the big companies, if you don't have the courage to ask for the job, they will not hire you, even if you've done everything else on this list right. At Oracle, if you didn't ask for the job in sales, they wouldn't hire you, period. You could be the most wonderful person in the world. I had it happen a bunch of times. I loved them, Evan, but they didn't close me. They didn't ask for the job. Consulting companies, big companies, they want to know that you have courage. And even if they don't make it a requirement for you to ask them for the job, they will really respect it and it will up your stock in their eyes. The last part is humanity. If you do your interview right, what's going to happen is they are going to probably say to you, geez, this is going great. When I followed these steps or had people follow them, sometimes an hour interview is done in 35 minutes. And the hiring manager may be like, geez, I'm supposed to spend an hour with them. I can't get up yet. And all of a sudden you're sitting there looking someone in the eyeball, and you have to make conversation. And sometimes at the beginning, they'll make conversation. They'll say, Alex, you're from Germany. That's great. I spent a summer there and I've been skiing here. And oh my God, what part? They may connect with you. You've got to be able to do the humanity piece and connect. But two things on humanity, if it's in the beginning, don't let it go any more than 5 minutes. They might like you. They might not have anything else to do. They might shoot the breeze with you for 45 minutes and none of this gets done in your favor. And you're sitting there and you never got your Reaprich out onto the table. At the back end, super important. If you notice a picture on their wall, I had a guy one time see an Italian villa on a senior vice president's wall and say, "Oh my God, is that Italy?" And that senior vice president, Edward, said, "Yes, it is. That's my villa. I vacation in Italy." And that guy who had done everything right said, "Oh my God, Edward, I speak fluent Italian." And Edward at that moment began to speak to this gentleman in Italian. And I was sure this guy was going to get the job. He was one of the best in the industry. Edward came out to me after and said, "Evan, love the guy. You were right about everything about him, but I'm not going to hire him." And I said, What do you mean? What do you mean, Edward, you're not going to hire him?" He said, he told me he was an expert, very fluent Italian. He's only a B plus. And if he's telling me this, then he's going to tell my customers he's done the research on them and he's ready to meet with them when in fact he isn't or hasn't done it. So he doesn't know himself well enough to rate or gauge himself. And he didn't say that about the knowing himself well, but you got to know yourself well. You got to be humble when you're in humanity. If someone, you notice a picture, make sure it's their office too. If it's skydiving and you can't make out the person, don't say, "I love your skydiving picture." Sometimes people switch offices. Sometimes you're in a conference room. So when you open up the humanity question, if you're stuck sitting there with them, as you say, "Alex, I so much enjoyed my time here with you and Ashley today. It was so great to, spend time. I'm excited to come aboard. Tell me a little bit about you two. Like, have you taken up any interests since you've been here at Salesforce, or, are there activities that people do, whether it's, fitness related or clubs? Like, tell me about you two." And what you're asking them is you're creating intimacy. And you're creating what is called into me see. That's what intimacy is. They will open up and maybe say what Alex will say, "Evan, I love to ski and I love to do this." And oh, that's wonderful. I love to ski too, Alex. I grew up skiing in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. You never want to one up or better or brag. It's a time when personal things, people sometimes don't remain humble and in humility. So what I was going to say, little recap before we move to questions. Resources: invest time alone and with friends. The price of an education demands practice. If you spent money on your education, or your parents have, or if you have student loans, you owe it to yourself to be an A+ interviewer and blow them off their chair. If you're not that person, there's 9 other people or 500 other that might get the job. Sometimes they get 1,000 resumes. And one of the things I teach is the distinction of how to reach out in LinkedIn, how to leave voice messages, how to get people's attention, because resumes often, they go into a black hole sometimes and they never come out. So you got to get to your hiring managers. It's a big thing I teach with How Leader, along with all these pieces. We make people experts. Be on offense, not defense. Be in confidence and energy, not in fear. Define your future. A little bit about me, howleader.com. We've got videos of top leaders in multiple industries, coaching packages, blogs, and a subscription model. Subscription's $3 a month to be able to watch videos. Right now, we've got 20 of the top leaders, and not unattainable people. We're not talking about people that most of us could never be. We're talking about people in all these incredible industries, most of them Palm Beach super successes that have retired, and other people across the world. Some of them have been people I've hired for that are #1 in their industry. Some of them are people I've coached to get to the SVP and C level. We'll probably add another 20, 30, 40, but the focus was so anybody across the world, there would be democratized access to get to hear a leader interview deeply about failures, wins, practices, someone that they'd never be able to get a lunch with or get the attention of. So after people got the job with the book, they call me and say, "Can't believe I got this job. What do I do now?" That's why I built HULT Leader, because we want to teach people to get the job and then to rise to the top of their field. And we do the private coaching, delivery of Reaprich, removing fear and anxiety. A lot of people are owned by fear and anxiety, no matter where they're at in their life. We teach people how to remove it. We have exercises around it so you can have inner freedom and be your best self in your personal and professional life. Writing LinkedIn email outreaches, individual group training. The book is here, Cracking the Code to a Successful Interview. My contact information is here. Feel free to reach out if you have questions. I always love referrals. Some of the coaching I've done, I love it when people buy the book or they send the book out to their friends. That's the one favor you can do for me, because part of my mission in writing it is that nobody is sitting there after getting a master's and postmaster's and the whole industry changes and they have to reinvent and not know how to interview and be in that fear. So I want to make sure anybody that deserves the job can put their best foot forward. So spreading the book around the world is really a mission for me. I don't make a whole lot off the book, but if I can change lives and take people out of fear and pain, and I want to say at Harvard, I had people with their doctorates come to me crying after a talk I gave at Harvard and MIT because they couldn't get out of their school roles. They wanted to get into biotech. They're making 35 to 55 grand a year with doctorates and PhDs and MDs. So a little bit about that. Now let's open up to discussion and questions. Ask anything you want. It's an open floor. And I haven't been able to smile or see everybody here because I've had my presentation up. So I know Alex said there'd be at least 250, I think, here. Okay.
Well, that's the amount of members we have in our club, but not all
I'm
of them
kidding.
are actually. But exciting that we have questions now up. And I think before you jump in a question, I do have a question. I think the one part which is really interesting is where you were talking about asking intelligent questions. Can you give us a couple of more examples of which questions you feel like really showcase that you know what you're doing and that get recruiters excited?
Sure, definitely. And which part of the interview process were you thinking of as far as intelligent questions?
Pretty much at the end.
At the end. Okay, so as you're closing, and I'm just going to take a quick sip of water here. So at the end of the process, when you're interviewing them, one of the most powerful things you can do, because I want to remind everybody, is no matter who you are in life, a lot of people don't get compliments, right? To truly care about people and to kind of look at them and say, wow, congrats on what you've done, or I'm impressed with who you are. Some people work 5 or 10 years and they have a boss that says, good job, but they don't get a compliment. So when you honor someone, that's a great intro into asking a question. So I might say, well, Alex, you spent an incredible amount of time in the HULT master's programs and done an amazing job. It's from what I can see. Tell me about what you love about them, and what you've learned since you've been here. It's very similar to what can I see on the website. So in a work setting, I would say, hi, Tracy. Looks like you have a great background in what you've done, and you've been here for 10 years. Tell me about what makes you stay. You must be getting recruited all the time with your background to go somewhere else. So honoring someone and their hard work and then asking why they're loyal is a great question too. Also, beyond that, you can also get a little bit humanity focused in it. If you study the company and say they have a meditation group or they have the #1 team on something, you can very simply say, listen, I'm really impressed with what I've seen on the website. You all seem to volunteer and you've taught meditation or you've done these things. Tell me about that. And last thing is, people really love to talk about the causes, like what is the soul of the business? What makes the business better? So, and I see all of you now. So if I was in with Maria, I might say, Maria, I love the causes that you stand for as a company, and I'm so interested in giving back. Tell me about, what does the group do? How often do you participate? How could I get involved in that? If you really believe it, you want to be authentic, but people, one of the biggest ways to even get somebody to be a part of what you're doing is caring about what matters to them behind the scenes. And some companies with values, they're aligned with that. So volunteer area, you can ask about what they could share with you from an intimacy standpoint that you wouldn't see on the website. You could ask them why they're loyal, why they're there, and compliment their background. Those are normally the top three. So is that helpful?
Definitely, great.
Any other questions or thoughts?
Yes,
I
Maria.
think I can go.
Hi, Maria.
Hi. Oh, hi, Evan. Hi, Alex. Hi, Aisha and Tracy. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Um, we are actually having a very busy week in school. Everybody is finishing their business challenges. It's a thing, and I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be very happy to listen to the recording. So we're we're don't 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 think that there's not enough people that are interested in your subject. I just wanted to say that. And I was curious about something that recently has been going on at school whenever we are approached by a recruiter, and the first thing that or the first filter usually comes by a phone call. There is this screening that is just something that is very particular in the US, not in other countries. And I was wondering if you would suggest us to maybe face the interview by phone differently than by a face-to-face interview or a Zoom interview where you can actually see reactions, right? Do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, sure, definitely. And what I was going to say too is if the group, I know things get busy, don't even worry about it. If they can see the presentation, and I'd love to help. And perhaps down the road we can do something else really fun to get everybody together. So always available. I was going to say in the phone calls, I really encourage people to do the same things because you want to reach out in the phone call. You want to get into their nervous system. They can't even see you. And so, and even when people are doing great consulting or sales or executive leadership, we're always taught to smile into the phone, right? To let our warmth and our personality come through. So I think on the phone calls, you might be the only person that moved their day as well, similar to in person. So, and sometimes in the phone calls are a little more scripted. They want to get their information, they want what they want, and they're being direct. But even in an abbreviated fashion, if you can slide the Reaprich steps in with what you're stating, so they might just want to hit you with questions. I've seen it happen where, oh my God, Maria, tell me about this, and have you done this, and what are you focused on? Yes, I am, and I'm focused on these three things. I know they're important to you. Here's what I've done here and here. And I've also created amazing results within it. Here's what they are. And I've created results in these other two areas. So we can tie our results and have energy and attitude. But phone is even more important. I think people can't see us. And now Zoom's a extra credit, right? We can see, we all got used to it. But is that helpful?
Yes, it is helpful. And if I don't step into anybody's question, just I had also a thought while you were talking about our path after a master program. Many of us go into a master program to maybe have a jump to a different industry um, after having some experience in I don't know. In my case, it's healthcare, right? But today,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I want to go and jump into another industry that is maybe tech or maybe media. And I want like for you as a recruiter in Oracle, have you ever had the experience of just listening to a candidate be brilliant in a way that they can leverage their skills into convincing you that they are the right person for your company?
Most definitely, and that's an excellent question. I'm so glad you asked that. And in a lot of what I, teach in the book too, is really how do you differentiate yourself in such a way that even if you're switching industries, that you're their number one choice. And so the way people do that is the results too, because results are often transferable. But I often coach people to give a couple examples, maybe even three, of where they've learned something new. So I came into healthcare and I started on this end, Maria, and I was doing this, but I got an opportunity to actually switch and move over. And I had to learn these three disciplines very quickly. I did that. And then I did so well that I was asked to be part of one of the C-suite programs. And had to learn both technology and subject matter expertise in this whole healthcare practice in about a 2-month period. So if they feel you have results and you have the energy and smarts and tenacity to learn things quickly, they're much more likely to say yes and take a risk on you. And keep in mind, even in healthcare, if you're moving to technology, you may have overachieved and got much better results in certain ways than even some people in tech that are coming to them. And if I may ask, tell me about your healthcare, like what were you doing or what have you been doing?
I'm a business administrator and worked 8 years for Roche, the biosciences pharma company. And then I moved
Yeah.
into Novartis. And I was first in clinical trial. I was a clinical trial associate. I had no training in medical, life sciences. I really had to learn fast. And then I went into risks, compliance, and ethics for a
Wow.
long time. So yeah, I have those skills and I kind of want to take that to maybe the AI space.
Yeah.
So um that's a big arena, I would say, but there's a lot of interest of industries that are looking into that. So yeah, that's kind of my aim now.
Okay, that's great. I love that. And can I ask you a couple other quick things, just because I like to engage and understand, and also maybe bring you forward in some of these things. It sounds like you're smart, you learn things. My guess is you probably enjoy interacting with people though too, and maybe even presenting, like you probably have some good energy, it seems like, to you.
I do enjoy connecting with people, and actually my job was very intensive in being empathetic with people because
Yes.
I was the person that had to understand why they were not complying
Yes,
with
that's tough.
rules. Yeah, so there was a lot of behavioral science behind understanding what drove people, what were the incentives for them to maybe change their mind and their habits and their work ethic. So yes, I do enjoy working with people.
That's great. And I love that. And reason I ask is with Oracle, there was a clinical applications group, and they only had really people that understood clinical applications, and they had to build a team that would stand beside the sales team and talk about the product and the technology. And that those people were called, in the old days, sales engineers. Now they're called solutions consultants. And what they would do is go in and very empathetically meet with a customer and look at the technology and the clinical stuff they're using. And then they would really listen and spend the day. Then they would come back and make recommendations and write up a proposal. And then they would give a presentation to the customer with the salesperson present. So they weren't responsible for making the sale or closing it. They were what's called the technical or functional liaison to the sales process. That role is a very popular role. People starting in it, probably, right out of college, it's more like a 60K base and a 30K bonus program. But once you have 3 or 4 years experience, it's about a 120 plus a 50. If you become a principal, it's about a 150 plus a 70 or 80 or a $200,000 base. It's a work with different clients, companies, and travel. So that could be something. And healthcare products and technology is key. And if you start, some of the AI products aren't being demoed cross industry. They're being, demoed more in a beginning stage. But if you started in clinical, as things evolve and they start to use AI, even in like healthcare, they're looking at using AI to send patients home with certain instructions when the doctors speak the instruction to create videos out of that. I have a Phillips Exeter student that's working on one of those projects, but a lot of ways. And feel free to reach out to me. I can send you that type of job description and just kind of walk you through. That might be fun. Do you think you might enjoy like a role like that?
Thank you so much, Evan. That's been very helpful. Yes, I've already
Yeah.
sent you a LinkedIn connection invite. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Great.
great. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I love that. Any other questions from you or from Aisha or from
Actually,
Tracy?
I think she said it all. I had a similar question, but I think because I mean, thank you again for the presentation. I wanted to ask specifically about being able to stand up because, like you said, you as a candidate, you might be very confident. I mean, you know what you're capable of, the value you have or the value you can bring to the company, but sometimes it's very difficult to be able to demonstrate that without being able to, without being given the chance to. And
Yes.
I think that's why a lot of candidates like us, struggle to actually land the right job because most of the jobs that we like, oh, this is actually what's right for us, what's best for us, where our strength is. It's so difficult at the end of the day, you just have to find yourself starting from, some roles you didn't even consider, but because you just want to, get into the market, at least just have a starting point. So I don't
Yes.
know if you have, any advice in that regards, because yeah, again, I think almost everyone is struggling with that.
Yes, yes, of course, of course. And without a doubt, everybody's struggling with that piece of helping them understand who you are and what you have and what you can impact right away, right? It sounds like you want them to see and understand that experience. So some of that is aligned with the things that I shared, but I was going to ask, tell me about what's your focus and what kind of roles are you trying to get into? It'll help me a little bit to expound for you.
Oh, sure. So, I have a bit of technical background before coming to HULT, and then mostly IT bias. That's where my bachelor's degree is. I obtained a bachelor's degree in information technology and business information systems. And
Yes.
I have a technical background. I have two startups I'm currently running. One
Ah,
is, one is fintech, and the other one is it's like an edtech. Actually, three. And then I have one other one that I'm actually building now. I recently launched it, I think last month. So that one is like a digital business card platform where people can sign up, and I plan to focus on B2B. So I have a team of developers that I work with closely. And so I'm looking for more of a, senior roles, obviously based on my experience and expertise, maybe a technology strategist or management consultant in a business sector, any sector, but specifically looking at the tech sector.
wow, that's great. I'm so impressed with both your backgrounds, and that's incredible. And starting startups too is fun. I love the innovation and the entrepreneurship. It's hard, but it shows a special set of commitment to be like, hey, I feel this. I'm going to launch it. I'm going to go after it. And I love to talk startup. I've helped a lot of the unicorns in Silicon Valley, the top ones, and hired for them. So I would fly out and spend a lot of time when I was just a bit younger. So also getting in the door somewhere that may have a product that aligns with one of the passions of your startup interests, it can be a really cool thing because it's something that you're passionate about. You're already standing in the space. One of the things too is becoming a management consultant is you maybe doing a video of something you're passionate about too, related to one of your startups, where they could see you getting really energized outside of just the interview process, right? Where they could be like, oh my God, if we got Aisha here, this is how she'd show up for people. This is what she would communicate. Because a lot of times it sounds like you have a lot of great smarts and you're putting all this together. Um, when we share our passion and we deliver, people get to meet us. They get to meet that part of us. And we even share about what we're great at, talking about your results in the startups, what you're focused on. And I do have some great connections too in Palm Beach with people that one of them that's on the How Leader site runs the largest angel fund for the Palm Beach chapter. And so there's a lot of people that are looking for cool things there. But I think I would say practice the results thing, and about what you love doing, bringing it forward with a lot of energy, and also maybe a video or a clip or a presentation about, you could even talk about your 4 startups. Hey, I'm Aisha. I'm in the HULT Masters program, and I have these 4 startups that I'm working on right now. I am so passionate about them. Let me tell you what they are. And then boom, 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 boom. It's something like that, almost even in a TikTok format or a 3-minute speech. And that's something, I love to do those things. And there's a woman I can share with you too that was so shy, and now she's working for Nickelodeon, and she's running all the SpongeBob and all the social media. But now she's working with another company, pro bono, and she's interviewing all these people live on video like I used to. I'm like, this is amazing, Jordan. So remember, I get a sense you have that passion within you. Do you all get to see that from her when you're interacting and doing things? I bet she's got a lot of energy, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely. We
absolutely.
always are surprised by the amount of startups Aisha is running. That's for sure. And we are actually
Yeah.
in an environment right now where we have people only in the call, which are all very engaged with the club. So that's great. Any
Yeah.
further
That's
questions?
great. Yeah, Aisha, I
Um,
was going to say, please reach out to me, okay? And let's talk a
oh,
little more about
absolutely.
that. And send me your startup stuff too. And then if
Absolutely.
you practice your pitch, or you want to do that, I'd be happy to get on with it like I've done, with any of you here, but with Alex, and help you get through the first part so you can go and jam with it and have fun. Okay. I can tell you're a great person. So
Absolutely. I also plan to leverage on the Voices of HULT. We have another club. I don't know if it's a club, but yeah, it's an initiative from HULT students, and they do it, and they kind of have some podcast session with random people. So I plan to do that and talk about my experience with HULT and also my startups and how I can leverage the skills I'm gaining from HULT to build the startup
yeah,
movement. I think that would be a good channel. I just thought about it recently, and I'm working towards that.
I love that. People have called me out of podcasts I've done or radio shows, and some of them are, strangely enough, they become amazing relationships too. So I love that you're doing that. That's
Mm.
cool. And yeah, and as you formulate that strategy too, or send me an email, I think I can tell. And I'm curious about the startups too, because I think what really moves you can help you get in the door somewhere too, or people will see that passion. But remember too, sometimes we're meant to be in startups and do our own thing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
first things first.
Absolutely. I will definitely reach out, and I'll send you the details. So at least you can
Yes,
also give me a feedback if you have any. Mhm.
I would love to. Absolutely. I enjoy doing that. It's very important to me. Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely. My honor. Thank you. Yes. And we have Tracy over there. I haven't seen a smile yet, but I know she's with us. Uh, she's
Perfect.
multitasking. That's okay.
Mm.
That's good. And well, yeah, you're all doing wonderful things, and meeting Alex has been great, but also everybody here. Sometimes when it's small or this way, it's how it's supposed to be, right? We're supposed to have more of an intimate connection and talk about things. So, and sometimes I've had a few people I've helped them build companies or do things out of some of the coaching I've done. So I kind of get jazzed about all that stuff. I enjoy it, but. Well, good. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay. Well,
Doesn't appear to be the case. Great. Well, in that case,
yes.
Evan, do you want to make the closing, or I want to do the closing? I don't mind. I just I'm super grateful that you had the time today to have a talk. I think you showed some very useful tips, especially the Reaprich approach. I like it, especially with the last 2 parts, with the closing and the humanity part, because so much is just about, okay, you need to be so awesome, but then you need to consider as well that you really need to make genuine connection as well. And I think there's a lot to compress with, and we really appreciate the call with you. Also, thank you very much, Tracy, Maria, and Aisha, who stayed all the way along. I think you took definitely something out of this call, and thank you very much for your participants, and looking forward
Yes.
to the future.